not, we can move right into our speaker for the evening, which is Tom Seary, who's actually served on our steering committee for the last few years and has come out of both environmental movement and the peace and anti-war movement. He was program director for Peace Action Wisconsin for about 7 years. And he also has a long history in environmental work, being a co-founder of Citizens Utility Board.
Yeah.
And he was also elected to the state legislature as an environmentalist and promoted a lot of very excellent legislation around environmental issues while he was there, and got himself in some trouble with some of the more conservative elements, and but has made an impact for many years in this area. So tonight he has a very interesting presentation on legal case. He's also a lawyer, by the way. So his this is a legal case against the fossil fuel industry that some of the states are pursuing. And Tom is involved in this effort in Wisconsin. So Tom, you take it and explain all this to us.
Okay. Let me ask a couple of quick questions first. There's a website called Exxon News. I don't know if anybody follows that or reads that kind of stuff. Are you up on that? Maybe not, but that's that. A lot of this information comes through them. And then the other one is there's another website called Climate Files. And the Climate Files has about, I haven't gotten through it all. They got 399 internal documents of the oil and gas companies. I mean, their strategy, how they operate, and what's going on. And all of a sudden, this is becoming public knowledge and deals with all kinds of things that are internal to these guys. I'll mention a couple of the documents in there in my talk because it's helpful, and I think Greg will be able to get them up online so you can start to see some of the ways that they operate internally and how we got to the situation that we got. Let me start out by saying I don't know if anybody or if people are aware of the concept of what happens in a personal injury lawsuit. This is something similar to what's going on in the cases that are before the courts right now. The first basic idea is that if a seller knows that the product they're selling can cause harm, they're liable for the harm that they cause if they don't tell you. And so, for example, Big Tobacco knew that tobacco causes lung cancer, but they continued to promote it and not tell people that this could happen. And so they got sued and got a lot of people who got lung cancer because of that. The same issue applies to the fossil fuel companies. They knew early on. I mean, this Climate Files has files going back to 1953 with them starting to look at how they are, what their connection with air and water pollution was in 1953. In 1957, I think 57 or 58, Julie, you'll know Edward Teller, the guy who made hydrogen bombs. He went to them and told them about climate change in 1958. That's how far back they are starting to do this. Exxon actually did research on their own. And again, I don't know if you've seen some of the articles or discussions about this, but Exxon had some discussions going on. And Greg, if you have that first document that I sent to you, yeah, there you go. And that's just enough. That's the document itself is below that. And the documents are not short. That one goes about 17 or 18 pages. Needless to say, I didn't read all. I'd read some of it, didn't read all of it, because the synopsis that the folks who are on Climate Files got in the front here. And let me end run. Climate Files is run by a group of people who are totally committed to getting the information out of whether it's in this kind of a memo or anything else. They are getting all kinds of documents out and organizing them so they're more available to all of us. And you'll see some of this stuff. You can see this. This is an internal memo on October 1879, October 16th, 1979. The key things in here are, you can read those three dots. Present trends of fossil fuel combustion, this is a quote, combustion with coal emphasis will lead to dramatic world climate changes within the next 75 years. CO2 buildup in the atmosphere is a worldwide problem. If it becomes necessary to limit future CO2 emissions without practical removal or disposal methods, coal and possible other fossil fuel resources could not be utilized to any appreciable extent. They're starting to be aware in 1979 of the problem. Greg, could you go to the next one? And this was at a meeting of the American Petroleum Institute, and you can't see it, but down on the bottom where the actual text is, it says this is proprietary information. And I was only able to get that first part copied. And the key thing I want you to look at is the third paragraph. Dr. Lerman, who's the one who wrote this memo that goes on here, this is in 1980. In 1980, Lerman uniquely concedes that there is strong evidence that the increase in atmospheric CO2 concentration is anthropogenic, that is people caused, and caused mainly from fossil fuel burning. Further, the report dismisses uncertainties surrounding the current carbon cycle modeling and natural climate variability, predicting a global average of 2.5 degrees centigrade rise expected by 2038, with major economic consequences, and a 5 degrees centigrade rise by 2067, with global catastrophic effects. The report concludes there is no leeway regarding time for action. Okay, this is internal. And as I said, it's a proprietary information. If you get into the whole thing, and it goes on for a number of pages, he gets into more details about the whole thing that's going on. Exxon knew, the petroleum companies knew, and earlier, in some of the earlier documents, Greg, you can take that off now. Some of the earlier documents, there is all kinds of things going on about their internal structure, about how they're discussing this. And I recognize that science takes a little while to get there, but you'll see in some of the other articles that are in Exxon News that they knew in the 1980s, in 1980 and 81, this was a problem, but they didn't tell anybody. Yeah, and you see it now on TV when you see those medicine ads, you know, and the voiceover says, be careful, you could get all these sicknesses if you take this medicine, but they don't show it on words. They just tell you, they give you notice. That's the jargon phrase. They give you notice that this could be a problem. And usually the doctors and the pharmacists are good. My pharmacist is good about telling me what kind of problems I could have with any medicine that I'm taking. So, but Exxon did not give notice. And that becomes a fatal flaw in what they're doing. So, and again, Exxon's early climate models were accurate. And that now is coming out in other documents that you'll see in the Exxon News. Exxon News is fabulous. They tell right up front, you know, that who they're representing and what they're trying to do. The other one that I'll get into a little bit is the climate files. They want secret documents from internal of the oil companies, and they're getting them. Like I said, the one proprietary information was not supposed to be released, but somebody inside, and a lot of the client scientists for Exxon were scientists first and workers for Exxon second. And so they kind of been slipping out information about what happened and how the oil companies got to where they're getting. And there's internal discussions about how they organized to manipulate the people and their shareholders and all kinds of other ways. I mean, they need to be sued. And that's what I'm concerned about and want to try to do. So big oil is fueling the fire. And I think there are a couple other issues that are going on here. Greg, could you go to the next document? I think this next one, yeah, this is, it's amazing in these Exxon files, our Exxon news. They bring up these kinds of research, and I'm not going to give you the whole thing. It goes on for about 50, 60 pages. But the key article is air pollution and health impacts of oil and gas production in the United States. What harm is being done? And it's amazing the number of research papers that are going on. You can see this is the research health. And this is just one area of how they're showing these kinds of pollution is affecting people's health. And this article goes on for about 50 pages. And it's verified by, the whole process of scientific research. I don't know if that follow that. The article was given to people who were not involved in the writing to verify that what they're writing is accurate and true. And that came back. And so now it's published. You can see this was published in May. And it shows how, again, this is documents that this shows what the actual harm is being done. And that's really important. If you're going to go to court and show what that the oil companies were responsible for this, you got to show the harm that's going on and the damages that are happening. And run briefly, there are a couple of cases that are going through the courts and are in a more advanced stage, relatively speaking. And again, you got to know the process, but they're they're in the discovery stage. Both the one in Hawaii and the one in Massachusetts are in the discovery stage. There are about 6 states altogether that have court cases going. And so this has all gone through a difficult mechanism. But those 2 states, for example, Hawaii, their damage, you got to understand, this is Honolulu, Waikiki Beach. Since 1950, they have lost 4 inches of beach. But this is Waikiki Beach, and this is where their people going. They're losing right now about 1 inch of beach every 4 years. This is damages, okay? And so that's one whole level, but this isn't the only level of problem that's going on. So that's one whole thing that needs to be looked at. But there are other areas where it's health issues that are need to be looked at. And that's another whole area. They have environmental research on health that looks at the damage that's happening to people because of the health impacts of oil and gas production and coal, but they really are focused in on oil. So that's the other thing that goes on. We'll get to that in a minute. Yeah, and we just have gone through the smoke from Canada. This is you can see this was done, republished in May 16th of 2023, just 2 months ago. This is because of other fires, the quantifying the distribution of major carbon producers to increase the vapor pressure deficit and burned area in Western United States and Southwestern Canada, not the ones in Northern and Central Canada. This is stuff from before. And the vapor pressure deficit means there's not enough water in the air or in the ground to stop these tremendous forest fires that are going on in Canada. This paper looks at the ones that were going on before this and researches, and again, nails the major carbon producers, the cost that is going on, the damages that are going on in that country and in South and Western United States because of carbon producers, of the carbon emissions. This has got to be dealt with. And this is the research science. Again, the same kind of thing. They come up, all these authors come up with a document, and then it goes through, peer review, and those peers make sure that what they're saying is accurate and responsible. So those are the kind of documents that you can come across in the Exxon News. By the way, it's Exxon KNEWS, and they're based in Washington, and they regularly have emails that they send me about all that's really happening, and so it's really good information that's being kept up. So those are the key issues that are being looked at. But it turns out that there's another research document like these that are going from Environmental Resources Health, and that deals with particularly air pollution and the impacts of oil and gas production in the United States. And I couldn't believe this number. The damages to health in the United States, I'm sorry, to the world, the damages to the world of people is $23.2 trillion. That's what this other research study figured out. The same kind of pattern that you see in before with the number of authors, $23.2 trillion. And to cover up for that damage, they would have to go to the oil companies for $308 billion to deal with all the harm that the oil companies are doing, oil and gas and all those. So those are the kinds of things that are going forward. The other thing that's interesting, there is a part of the federal law, and it's a number of states. It's called RICO, Racketeering Influenced Corrupt Organizations. And I don't know if you're familiar with that. That was a law that was passed in about 1968, trying to deal with the mafia and the racketeers that were going there. What's going on now, because they're corrupt organizations, is what the emphasis here is. And so there's a couple of places, Hoboken, New Jersey, a couple of other cities are going after RICO charges. RICO charges are pretty serious. You can get, if you found somebody got with a RICO charge against them, they get prison time. They can get something up to 20 years of prison. But the financial penalties are more severe. The fine is either $250,000 or double the amount of the proceeds earned from the illicit activity. Double the amount. So there's a couple of places that are going after with a RICO charge. Now, I assume the oil companies their presidents are not going to go to jail. They'll work a deal. And that's where it comes down to how we do this. And we've been talking about how that kind of information can get brought in. What's been going on, I'm working with another group, and we are encouraging Josh Call to get busy and start suing the oil companies, to take them to court. And I've met with his attorneys who deal with environmental law. We met with them a couple of 3 weeks ago, and I talked about what could be done and will they get going at it. And I argued for three things that they should look at for when they asked us, what should we be focused in on? Particularly, I focused in on the harm and damages that have gone on in the United States, in Wisconsin, particularly, and I haven't been able to get through to this. I know Medical College of Wisconsin has done studies on people who live near the freeways and the health damages to those people. And I'm calling I haven't been able to get to the right person at the medical college to get a copy of that and see if they've got any further research, because this is a real problem for people in our minority communities who live near the freeways. And so that's one of the issues that I talked to them about. The second issue is that I wanted them to have, you probably guessed the answer to this, to have the court decide where the payments go. The court should decide it, and not, and if you know anything about the legislature in Wisconsin, I prefer the court to decide it, rather than if there's, and the penalties certainly will be in the $1 billion range, many billions of dollars. So I want the court after August 1st to decide how to divide up that money. That's what I asked them, and they understood my political decision there. And then thirdly, I argued, and it's kind of what we've talked about in our group before, in the Inflation Reduction Act, there's a methodology of people who have a lot of money don't get much of a tax break on that. Middle class gets a bit of a tax break, and low-income people get a large tax break. And I said, that's how the money should get divided up. People who need the money the most, who are most harmed, should get the money the most. So that's kind of the pitch that I made to the attorneys, and particularly talking about the harm. That's in this kind of a lawsuit, you got to have the harm as clearly as you can defined and what it's been costing. There's a lot of other things that need to be added to that beyond the people harm. But I think that can be added more easily, but that's kind of what's going on. Several things have gone on since that meeting. One of the things is 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago now, I went to Call's fundraiser. He was at a fundraiser up on the North Shore. And it's incredible to believe, but they have a very nice house on Lake Michigan and are so solidly Democrats that that's great. But there are two. Call at that point talked about two major issues that he was concerned about. The one is, and I have no real contest with this, he wants to break up the gerrymandering that goes on in the state legislature, so that the people who are in can't make decisions about how their district is going to look, so they can stay in office for all of their life. That the people should have more control over that. And the second issue is women's rights. And again, I think you've seen that there was a case in the Madison court that was decided on this, staying the activity of the whatever it is, 1859 law on abortion. So that's in progress. Call is focused on that. I bugged him on this kind of stuff, and we're going to do some more. As you know, Milwaukee County has passed something, a resolution asking him to do that. I was just meeting last Thursday with Bob Bauman in the city of Milwaukee. They're developing a resolution to do the same thing, calling on Call, get into court on this issue. And so that's the kind of thing that we need to move forward on. I plan on talking. I see our 350 Wisconsin group, their climate justice group is meeting next week on the 17th. And so I'm going to attend that and talk to them about getting Dane County and Madison to go. But I think, and the other obvious direction is to go up to Tom Nelson and Outagamie County to see about getting him going. So those are the directions I can think of offhand. But it would be, if people know of ideas of other areas of the state that we can get people calling on resolutions on Call to do this. I think he's open to doing something. When we had the meeting with his environmental attorneys, there's 6 of them. They are particularly working on several environmental violations that have gone on by companies in different parts of the state. And so their focus has been on that. But I think the more we encourage Call to do that, the sooner Wisconsin is going to get a case. This process is moving along. As I mentioned, someplace over the next, I don't know, months, maybe a year, Massachusetts and Hawaii are going to go into court, going to trial. And that's going to be a step forward. And run, you know, the Supreme Court, which this is an amazing thing. The oil companies wanted this stuff to go to the US Supreme Court. I don't know what you think about the US Supreme Court. I don't know whether you think the US Supreme Court has any obvious leanings, but the decision was made not to have these done in the federal courts, but done in the state courts. And that's a significant decision. One particular of the people on the court did not participate because he had so much stock in oil companies. There's a conflict of interest. There are a couple other people who I understand have oil stock, but they did not recuse themselves. So we're going back to Clarence Thomas and all that kind of stuff with this, our U.S. Supreme Court. So and there's some question going on about those who said on the abortion stuff that it's settled law. And so those folks are being looked at. What's her name? The lady, I'm blanking on their name. Anyways, there's a couple of people who are being looked at for their honesty, but they voted right, so this stays in state courts. That it will be of tremendous advantage to states like, well, after August 1st, states like Wisconsin. I guess you assume you understand how the court's going to, and Wisconsin is going to be changing on August 1st. So we'd like to see this moving. Like to see this moving, you know, and get called going on this. So, like I said, the city of Milwaukee will be having a resolution, and they know about. We brought up the Milwaukee County one with our meeting with them, and so that's kind of the direction that's going on with this whole thing. I don't know if you have any questions about this or any other questions that I can answer, but I think this process. You know, we've talked before about getting adequate money for the damages that are done. This is the only way to do it. And they got the money. So, okay, any questions you have?
You can ask questions in the chat or just raise your hand.
Jan's got her hand up. I'm fine with that.
Yep, just, okay. So let everybody know, if you raise your hand, you'll end up in a queue in the participants list, and we can bring you up in order.
I can answer best I can.
Jan,
okay, well, thanks, Tom, for bringing this up. I don't understand why these reports were made in the first place. Was it because somebody wanted to rat out the company and then they were shut down? Is that why? I mean, why would they put all this research out there and then not want anyone to know about it?
No, well, people know about it, but they don't know who put in the reports. And it's in the Climate Files guidelines that send them information and we won't publish. We don't need to know who you are. Don't send us your email address. So send that, if you've got some information from those oil companies, and they will not publish your name. They have another group that verifies that it's accurate. The criminal investigation, I forget the rest of the words, but there's a group that looks into what they're doing and has found that what they're doing is okay, is not illegal, and that they can get secret documents and publish them.
Wow. Okay, thanks.
Good for getting the secrets out. Charlie.
So are the young people in Montana using this information as part of their lawsuit, their climate change lawsuit in Montana?
I don't know. I don't know what they're using or what they're thinking is that goes on into that. That's I haven't gotten that far into the case law. Yeah, I don't know the answer.
Okay, so these reports that are so damning, these were scientists at the time that came to these conclusions?
Yes,
Is that what we're talking about here?
yes, yes, yes. The one guy that had the one that was so clear, where is his name? I had it here. Dr. No, you think I got to find what I'm looking for?
Was he hired by?
Lossinger, Dr. Lossinger.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, they're in some of the, well, again, these documents are revealed and Lossinger's out there. Okay. And I don't even know whether he's still alive. I mean, this is 1980.
Right.
So I don't, but yes, they get this information and they promise to keep the source secret.
And so there are these whistleblowers, I guess,
Yes,
who shall remain anonymous at this point.
yes.
And is this stuff being revealed like recently in the last few months or years?
No, it's long years. They've
Right.
had-
I know it happened years ago, 40
No.
some years ago, but
The climate files have been around since about the year 2002 or 2000 in that area.
okay.
So they've been around for the last 20 years, early 2000s. I don't have
Okay.
the exact number right in front of me.
Now, do you know, are they getting ongoing information at this point or?
I have not seen, the 399 that's how many documents they've got. Some of them are 160 and 180 and 190 pages. I haven't gotten that far.
Right.
The ones that I've gotten through, and I haven't read all of them. You read the synopsis but I do get into the documents to some level. It's they're not short. Some of them are 1 or 2 pages,
Right.
and there's a number like that. And there's 30 to 40, I think, is a more common number. And then some 180, 190 pages long. And like I said, I've only gotten up to about number 50 something of the 399. So, climate files. If you get a chance, start looking. It's just great stuff to see what really the thinking of these guys was. And I mean, some of the guys, one of the guys who was no longer at there had this one line in his, and it was all in capitalized. Where is it? Here's, things like not a high, the effects of CO2, not a high priority. That was in 1979. Exxon said that in an internal document. It just goes on and on about the things that get said in here. Dr. Lauerman, yeah, that's the guy. And I'm trying to look at the other nasty comment that this one guy put out.
So
That
these
sure,
are-
that would sure be great stuff to show to climate deniers, right?
Yeah,
They'd
Yes.
have a hard time refuting what the oil companies said, right?
Their science. I mean, like I say, their science is as good as anything anybody's
Of
coming up with
course.
now.
Yeah,
and they were paid by the oil companies to do these studies.
Yes,
right.
Okay, I
Yes.
just want to make sure, and this is
Yeah.
public, well, it's public knowledge now because they've been secretly funneled to this website.
that's right.
Now it's
That's right.
public knowledge.
Yes. So it can be, anybody can look at it. If you go to climate files, anybody can look at it.
So, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, on the other hand, it's not a short read,
no, I know, but it just seems like a lot of good information.
Oh,
that
yeah.
would be
Well-
good for a case against, Enbridge.
Yes, yes, all of that stuff. But they do, the people who put this have a short synopsis of what's going on. And you saw me, that's what they had, what they put together. What was in there, though, is accurate of what's in the longer document. Okay, so that's why I put the short synopsis in front of you rather than trying to read or go
Right.
through 40 pages. It's a little short on time here for that. Okay, Dennis?
Yeah, thank you for this very depressing news.
Yes,
It's kind of exciting in a way that this information is coming out. I just had a couple of things. One was that October 79 information, was that research that the Exxon scientists had done, where they said there was a dramatic increase in carbon dioxide within 75 years or changing? Was that Exxon
Yes.
research?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
that's what I
That was
thought.
that was that Lauer, let me spell his name here. Where did I put that? Laurmann, Lauerman.
Okay. And the second was, I was trying to remember when the Royal Society in England sent its second letter to the oil companies, chastising them for supporting companies that were trying to confuse people with climate change, about climate change. I think that was as early as 1992 or something.
Yes. I mean, and I didn't get there. That's in these documents too,
Oh,
about how they organized in the 70s to start planning. All the oil companies got together and started planning how they can control the message. I think that's the word they use. How do we control the message so that our point of view, well, I don't know what, they don't get into that part of it. Their goal is to kind of control the message. And that's in some of the early documents too. I didn't get there.
because I know one of the companies they hired was the same company that Philip Morris had hired to confuse people about secondhand smoke and the damage.
Yes,
The Surgeon
yes.
General's report, it was the same company.
yes. Why
Yeah.
are you surprised? Or you're not?
Not, thank you.
Yeah. Julie,
What I find to be so outlandish about this is that these internal scientific reports for these oil companies came out so clearly with these dire warnings
yes,
of what the future was going to hold if things didn't change. And these oil companies purposely suppress this information. They
yes,
not only just, oh, how do we, be careful how we word this to the public. Oh, no, we're suppressing this. These reports were buried, correct? Until someone, until some whistleblower,
leaked it.
leaked them into the public.
Yes,
It's criminal. And I think that the fact that that these lawsuits are starting to be developed, I mean, these were criminal acts.
yes,
And they should be, well, not only sued for money, but I think there should be jail time for the people involved in this. They're putting the whole planet at risk,
yes,
entire planet at risk for
yes,
their own selfish greed. And nothing could be made more clear in a case of criminal law, in my opinion. So
yes.
It's kind of too late.
Yeah, a couple of things. And I think there was Ellen who said it's too late. One of the issues is that the people who are running those companies at the time these reports were first coming out are long gone. Probably those from the 60s, 70s, and even the 80s, a lot of them may be dead. And the more recent ones are probably retired, and the ones that are current there are not necessarily suppressing the stuff. So going after them might not be that easy. But, I guess I'd like to ask is, so we've got papers published that the climate is going to change. Are there any papers that were published or that at least are in out there for public view, which go into describe or in any way reference what the impact of a warming climate would be on the population of the world?
Yeah, and the one by Lauerman kind of gets it at the end. Where did I put that quote? But he kind of gets at that at the end. But there are others, by the way, too. Well, Lauerman's, the CO2 buildup is a worldwide problem. It becomes, if it becomes necessary to limit it, wait a minute, where did he say that? Coal and oil and other possibilities, I'm forgetting here. Even if a dramatic changes in current energy resource use, it appears unlikely that an increase of 50% over pre-industrial CO2 level could be avoided in the next century. Okay, that was in 1979. I mean,
So, the question is, are they looking at the impacts like the effect on the climate, the fact that there might be more hurricanes, that the zones where you can grow food are going to shift, and they're going to shift at a rate that's that we won't be able to adapt for them. That the climate will heat up enough so that we'll start seeing the effects that we're seeing now, with 3-digit temperatures for weeks on end and across parts of even the United States, to say nothing of a good part of the rest of the world, droughts and all the other impacts that we're seeing. Did anybody look at that? Were there any predictions of those kinds of effects from the fact that the climate was going to warm up?
yes. Yes, there are, and I didn't get to though. Wait a minute, where do I gotta go? Yes, to answer your question, and I don't have it with me here, but there was studies looking at the melting ice, Arctic and Antarctic. And they start to look at that kind of, I haven't gotten in depth in some of those, but yes, they're looking at that. I don't know if they get into the food issue or the desertification issue, but they do get into the rising sea level issue, and because of melting north and south polar regions. So yes, they did get into that.
Mhm.
But yeah, I didn't see anything on the effects of, but again, I'm only in 47 of 399. So I got to read a little bit more before I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, go to the Evelyn Woodhead sped reading course.
Yeah, right. Jan, what's your thoughts?
I was wondering, is the media going to get hold of this and run a spread in the paper or something to inform the public more about this? Do you know? Have you intended to take some of your information perhaps and ask the journal environmentalist reporters perhaps to put this out there? I think it should be, it's so outrageous that people should know about it, but I don't think a lot of people do.
No, you're right. I hadn't thought of that. I guess yeah, what's the places? I got to write something up and talk to somebody at the journal. I hadn't thought of that. I thought you guys are friendly. I won't get strung up by you guys. So I'll have to think about that. I mean,
Thanks.
sounds like something, yeah, that needs to happen. Okay. Ellen.
Yeah. It just seems like, some kind of a media campaign that was more like, I don't know, visceral or in people's faces, that just said Exxon knew or Exxon knows. I'm not clear on what this website is, Exxon knew or Exxon knows. Like when you take the 1,000 canoes to the Capitol, and that's what they say on the side. I mean, if that's the big message, that's the kind of thing, I'm just talking out of the top of my head because I'm just frustrated with, there's all this great information out there and we're spread so thin because we're trying to attack things from all different sides. And I'm just trying to be local and effective and get people interested. And it just seems like, there's ways outside of the court system to do that. And I'm just expressing my frustration. That's all.
Yeah, and briefly, given our legislature, at least at this point, end run. back in the 1990s, I got the federal, I was the chair of the environmental committee. I got the federal Clean Air Act. And I was really starting to learn more about climate change at the time. And so I gotta admit, I tinkered with it a little bit. Made it a little tougher when you go and get your car repaired and tuned up and all that kind of stuff. I made it so that it had to be just a little more clean. And I brought it in the Assembly Democratic Caucus, and the Assembly Democratic Caucus, and there was some resistance from the northern guys. And then we got talking about it and calmed them down and was focused only on this area, on this southeastern Wisconsin area. But they started to get the idea of climate change. But now we need to deal with gerrymandering. I'm back to that issue before the legislature. I think, you know, Tony Avers had a committee on climate change, and that was interesting because they're, you know, because of my experience on Cub, I'm not surprised the Farmers Union was involved in that, and their Farmers Union is a pretty good group. And I think if I could talk to them about climate change, they're good. Have been and good in the past. The problem is that back when I was doing a lot of stuff, there was in northern Wisconsin, there was the jargon phrase a lot of Polish bachelor farmers who grew up during the Depression and knew that the Democrats were the right group to work with. A lot of those guys have passed away now. So I don't know. I mean, I think it needs to be worked on the thing. So anyways, that's another whole story. You do what you can, Ellen. Thank you. Dennis, you're up.
Yeah, and those Polish bachelor farmers probably didn't leave any offspring to be good Democrats. But there's another dimension to this that's really important. Talk about all the possible predictive things that those Exxon scientists had years ago. But what is this disturbing dimension is I know of at least 3 times, and I'm not following it that closely, but all these international panel of experts make these predictions about worst case scenarios. And then a few years later, they find out it's worse than they imagined or predicted with all their statistics.
Yes.
For example, now it seemed like they didn't realize that a really weak jet stream was going to contribute to these heat domes and stuff. And the first time I heard about it is like, oh, we didn't realize that these glaciers would crack, and when they would start to melt and the water would go to the base and kind of grease the skids. They didn't know that about glaciers. I mean, really basic stuff. So that's a dimension to all of this that I think is really frightening.
Yeah, well, and early in our 350 days here, we had some films about what was it called, Chasing Ice.
Yeah.
You know, we had and they showed the Greenland glacier. What was it, about a half mile of ice collapsing into the ocean that the guy had filmed. This is what, Julie, when was it? 7-8 years ago or something. You know, it was a while ago that we had that film, and then this whole thing about the glacier in Antarctica. That's as big as Greenland, as big as Florida, is what they said, and that's going. And then I saw, when was this, about a year or not even that long ago, about 6 months ago, that's in Western Australia. There's a section of Eastern Antarctica, rather. Eastern Antarctica is now starting to melt. And that's millions of years of ice.
Yeah, Trump seems to be the only one that predicted something that was actually worse than it was when it came to hurricane distribution. That felt pen thing he did that showed where he thought the hurricane was going to go.
Yeah.
Way off base. That was a joke.
Okay, Tim, I think your hand is up next.
Thank you for your work on this, Tom, and your presentation. We really appreciate it. I had 2 questions. One, wasn't there a congressional hearing on this about 6 months to a year ago? And secondly, how did this spread then from Exxon to Shell? And from Shell to the other oil companies? Did they call their buddies in a back room and just say,
Absolutely.
we found this out and you're gonna get caught too, so let's all figure out a plan?
Yes, exactly. That's in some of the documents of the reports of this, where is it? The American Petroleum Society. Or I forget the name of it, but yes, that was their plan. And they talk about how they can manipulate the American people by saying kind of twisty things. Oh yeah, that's in there. Climate files.
Mm.
Okay, Tim, Julie,
Yeah.
you're back.
Yes, I was wondering if your efforts with this committee of lawyers, really, of legal experts that are working with the Attorney General call to pressure him to take this case on could be assisted from a more, grassroots organizing in the background, so that there would be public pressure at the same time as you've got the logical legal, information for him to present to him, that he needs to be pressured to respond to that by people like us. And if there's, just things like, carrying signs when we're out, demonstrations with Exxon New, sue Exxon, and just say, Attorney General call, sue Exxon New, those sorts of things, so that the general public sees that, the information gets out, and there's get some media coverage. I think that writing letters, some article, some kind of, in my opinion, column or something for the Journal Sentinel would be very good. Also, Susan Bentz would be, I think, very interested in interviewing you and maybe someone else from your committee on her public radio show, where she's environmental specialist for WUWM. She does a really good job. And so some of those kinds of things to inform the public and at the same time put public pressure on call.
Yeah, to answer your question, that's, that I think is going to be helpful. Like I say, I don't think Call is saying no. He's saying, these are my priorities right now.
Exactly.
And the gerrymandering one is essential to the democracy of Wisconsin. I can't fault them for that. So, and they only got so much time and energy to do this stuff. So I think I understand. There's a part of me that understands, and it's not simple. I mean, to have these guys go through, 399 documents, and then, that's in the climate files, and they don't have to go through 399, but that's the kind of level of work they're going to have to do in order to come up with a case. And like I say, it's it's not a small task. Some of these other things, you can get an attorney or two to work on something and they can put it together and it goes, that kind of stuff. But these are big cases and challenging cases. And you gotta be in it for the long haul. So that's why we got to get Call elected again. Is the whole point. It's going to be a 5-year at least case. Julie, do you have more?
Okay, are you working in collaboration with some of these other states that are dealing with this same issue?
To some level, yes. We've been in Dean Muller's the lead guy on this stuff. Okay, and so I'm kind of the lawyer, figurehead kind of thing. So he brings me into these meetings with the other lawyers. But the point is yes, there are some other groups that have been kind of worked with us and give us some support. And actually, we've hired this guy to do a website for us. So Wisconsin for Environmental Justice. for W4EJ. And that's Dean Miller's kind of got that going. Our goal is to start to reach out. I gave him my list of environmental groups in the state. Particularly, they worked with Clean Wisconsin.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, we need to build up our organization, and and we're looking at how we can do that. So, Charlie.
Yeah, I guess I was, going to build on what Julie asked there. Sometimes attorney generals kind of go together. It seems to me they sign on to some kind of a multi-attorney general lawsuit kind of thing. I mean, I would hate to have him take time away from redistricting because I think that's really first priority for us here. And I can understand why this would be a huge, heavy lift. But if you've got some other attorney generals that are really focused on this, taking the lead, and then, Call just signs on with them,
Yeah.
maybe that's a way. But that would probably take it to the federal level and require, the Supreme Court. We know how they would vote.
No, what there are a number of the cases that are out there now are not the attorney general actually doing it. They're private firms. There's one,
Oh,
I forget the name of it. There's one private firm that is actually doing a lot of the lead on a number of these cases.
Yeah.
And so we brought one of the guys into that meeting. Oh, excuse me. But they kind of wanted to run their own show on this, is where they were at that meeting 3 weeks ago.
okay.
So it's getting a private firm who's got the level of attorneys and experience because they're working on a number of cases.
Yeah.
That really works a lot better. That's how some of these other cases really worked on gun laws and stuff like that. Or not in gun laws, but on the tobacco stuff.
Well, you have the Volkswagen case too.
Okay. Yeah.
There was a similar one there, and a whole lot of
Yeah.
money went out to the states on that,
Yes.
right? Was
Yeah.
that done by attorney generals or by some other entity?
I don't know. I suspect it's done by, I mean, there's a lot of big private firms that do this kind of stuff. And so, that would, if Call would let them do it, we get on the map,
Yeah.
So Terry, I think your hand's up.
Yes, and I'm unmuted. Is the website that you referred to up yet, or is it just in development?
Nope, they're both up. There's one called Climate Files, and the other one, which really is more keeping up to date on what's
Exxon
going on.
New. Exxon New. No, I was asking about the WI for.
Oh, that should be up, yes. W4EJ.
Is it W or WI?
I think it's just W.
W and numeral 4?
Correct. EJ.
.org?
.org or .com?
Now you ask me, this is 21st century questions you're asking me.
Oh, sorry.
I think that,
I'll look
I think it's .org. I think that's it. I'd have to check. It's in my.
.org. I just checked it. It's .org.
Okay. So yeah, any help you can give us on that would be great. And if you know people outstate who might be interested in getting their community involved, that's where it would help, because Call's got to look at the politics, and Madison and Milwaukee is given. As far as re-elections go, I'll be blunt.
Mhm.
It's where he's got to get support out state. And that's where, when you're running, that Evers got elected again is great. Dennis?
Just a point of information. We're recording this now. will we be able to refer people to a website where your talk can be listened to? Because it was really good and some really vital information.
Greg
The
knows,
answer-
yeah.
The
Greg,
answer to that is yes. If you go to the website currently, in fact, there's a link that'll take you to all the recordings that we have of past meetings.
One of the few hopes I have for our species is we can get good information out on the internet and a lot of people can see it.
Yep, yep. So yeah, both of those are on the internet. I go to them regularly. And Climate Files and Exxon, it's KNEW because Exxon knew. And they're really good because they got more than just the case, the the internal documents. Are we having fun yet?
Something more to keep us awake at night, huh?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah.
Oh, gosh.
gotta
No,
keep-
but it's really hopeful to know that there are whistleblowers in the world and that they've kind of have exposed this sort of information and that we have an opportunity to act on it. So those are some positive things to take from this.
I'm really impressed with the accuracy of their statements, though. I mean, the way they've detailed the degrees and the years. I mean, they're right on the button, right on the money there.
Yeah.
And they didn't have the advantage of the super sophisticated climate forecasting computers that, have been created since then. They were working with pretty crude technology in those days.
Mhm.
Yeah, but like I said, those scientists were scientists first. And then they
Yeah.
worked for Exxon.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
you got to give them credit. They they were not, well, I don't know. But they did come up with as a clearer definition of what was going to happen as they could. And their bosses didn't like it.
And of course, they've had to live with that knowledge for the past 40 years and they're watching it play out.
Yep.
Imagine how frustrated they must have felt
Yeah.
and probably still do if they're still alive.
That's the question, because a lot of these guys were PhDs and stuff like that, 40 years ago. Well, so,
Yeah.
how
So they
many,
have to go to bed at night and realize where the world is headed.
yeah,
And
well,
no
and
one
then,
wants to hear what they have to say. Really,
Yeah.
they're not going to do anything about it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you do the best you can. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what I say. We can get depressed about all that's going on out there. And all I can do is what I can control. And I do the best I can to move forward on that.
Yeah.
It's just too bad that money trumps life and, people
Yeah.
care more about making money than anybody's life.
Yeah. There was
Or
one
the
line.
life of the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, life in general, money, money, money. That's the important thing.
Yeah, there was one line in one of those, where did that go? Oh, yeah, this is a line in one of those climate papers. The guy who was writing, he had the sentence, in summary, and then in capital letters, he had, the prudent businessman and investor will take steps to see to it that someone else takes the risk. That someone else
Wow.
takes the risk.
Uh,
That's in capital letters. That's what the attitude there is.
Wow.
It would be
And someone
interesting.
else is the population of planet Earth.
Yes, later on than when these guys were alive. Yeah,
Yeah. The next generation,
yes,
next few generations will take the risk.
yes,
They're all, they're out of there before the shit hits the fan.
that's right.
So
It-
Dennis has his hand up.
Oh, Dennis, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Frontline that did a great program on big oils about a year ago, but they
Yeah.
interviewed a lot of these people that were involved with the research and the heads of the oil companies and stuff like that. And in terms of the risk, I don't know if you're all familiar with that University of Bath study where they interviewed 10,000 young people, 16 to 25, I think 4 different continents about climate change. And 40% of those young people don't want to bring children into the world because of climate change. And over 50% were depressed and anxious about the environment. and upset with their governments for not doing anything. So we owe it to the young generation to get these lawsuits going.
All those kids in Montana.
Right.
Yeah. Well, this is boon time for the therapists. You know, all the therapists out there, they're writing all kinds of books about how to deal with climate grief. You know, they've got all these people coming in to see them. In fact, if you want to see a therapist about climate grief, you have to get on a long waiting list, apparently.
Wow.
So it's a hot topic. In fact, the New Yorker magazine, I guess today, has devoted a whole issue to climate grief and therapy.
Wow.
And one level, like I said before, I understand, but I'm doing what I can. That's mostly what I can control. And you're doing what you can. And that's, I don't feel like there's anything more that I should be feeling bad about. I can only control me.
Sure.
And
You're doing something. That's the important
that's
thing.
it. That's it. We go out on Friday, and I enjoy that. We have a good time on Friday with Hong Kong, for a clean.
We do. We meet all kinds of people. It's
We
interesting.
get, my plan is to get them all to say Hong Kong for a clean environment, or Hong Kong.
And it usually works.
Oh yeah, it's fun. It's fun. Except for the guys in suits. Those I don't try to.
They're the oil
The
company
lady that
guys.
rolled down her window and yelled that it was a hoax.
Yeah,
Okay, who's doing this hoax? Wow, it's
Yeah.
quite impressive.
Jim, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, it'd be interesting to know how, when these scientists at Exxon first made this discovery, how did they hand off this information to the C-suite, as it were, to the executives or to the bosses or to the, evidently it went to the higher echelon management. It didn't just get handed out. So
Right.
there must have been some kind of a meeting or channel or something. Is that described anywhere?
Well, and like I mentioned, that one document that was so clear, the heading on it is proprietary information. It was not supposed to get out. Okay. And, now 40 years later, it does get out. But there, I don't know how these guys, the people who knew what was going on, and and the real problem, how do they go to bed at night? So
Why did they not shred these documents if they didn't want them to get out, or these reports?
they probably didn't have shredders in those days. Thank
Oh,
you.
well, tear it.
Oh, that way. Oh, the old.
I don't know. I mean, why did they keep all this information then? Didn't they think it was going to come back to bite them one day? Or,
No, I assume they
Maybe
just,
they didn't keep it, but the people who wrote these
Well-
pieces are the ones who handed them into the group.
yeah,
Oh, could be.
Whistleblowers held on to the information.
the authors. kept-
Yeah,
It's a good thing they did, but you'd think that they would have wanted them destroyed.
Yeah,
but they had a conscience.
yes,
Somebody did, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, that's reassuring anyways, I guess.
Well,
Yeah,
Dan,
yeah, Tom, I just want to, with everybody else saying, really great presentation. And I couldn't agree with you more. We can do what we can do.
yeah,
And, I feel that way a lot too. I have the memory of the early 70s or so that Exxon was actually pretty public with its reports. I think they were really early on, way out in front of the curve there, and they were very public. And they obviously got clamped down from the corporate headquarters, but I was active in the 70s. We did a big weekend, Labor Day weekend event called Smallest Beautiful Days.
yeah.
And we had a windmill up in the 27th and North. We had solar panels. We had all our neighborhood organizations doing tabling about all the social activism. But I have a distinct memory that Exxon and a couple of other corporations were really out front with solar panels and information. I associate the clampdown with the advent of Reagan.
Yeah.
I think all the stuff, the reactionary response sort of gelled very quickly. Tom, do you have any sense that I might be right about that?
Let me say this, where is that? In some of the documents in the files, they list where they were giving money. And generally, I mean, they're giving millions of dollars, generally to environmental groups, Sierra Club and those kind of places, they were giving money to them. And so I think that was part of their strategy. I think it was part of their, oh, see, we're trying to be environmentalists, see, and we give all this money to environmental groups and such like, I think it was public relations.
They still
I think
are.
maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but that's when you look at where they're giving. And there's some real well-known radical conservative groups, and they were giving bigger money to them than they were to the environmental groups. I go into the climate files, and about every year you'll see where they're giving the money. And I don't have that here, but they have where they're contributing money. Now maybe maybe there was some of them who wanted to do something right because they were open to doing that. But when I look at where they're giving the money, I think it was, I don't know. I can't speak for them. All I can tell you is there's tokens for the environmental groups and massive amounts for, I'm blanking on the conservative groups that they were giving money to. Look in, I think that's in, I don't know if it's in every year, but there's a number of times that's in. And the climate files group will redline or yellow line where some of these key details are, or some of the internal conversations are. The things that I talked about would have a yellow line around them. And the same thing goes in with the donations. They're given $20 million and some token donations to a few environmental groups. And then they're giving money to all kinds of conservative groups. So I think, but you got to look at it. There were some good community groups that they would give money to as well. So the Girl Scouts, I think, was one that I think of offhand. I don't recall Boy Scouts. Ellen, is your hand up?
I just wanted to say thank you. I really appreciate being here.
Good.
And I learned a lot, and I hope I do something with it. And I'm grateful for all the work all of you are doing.
Okay.
And
Ellen,
that was really informative.
Ellen, let me say this. Some of the 350 in Wisconsin, in Madison, they have a number of cute things going on.
Right.
Yeah. And so to go out to some on the, I don't know if they're out every Saturday, but
right.
It's fun just to be out and do.
Oh, no, I agree. I will hook up with them. I'm
Good.
just having a slow transition, but thank you so much. Okay.
Good.
Take care.
You-
Bye-bye.
Yes, thank you, Tom. It was very enlightening.
Definitely. Yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay.
It's after 8:30, so I think it's time that we close up shop here.
Okay.
So good night, everyone, and be good to the planet this coming month.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay,
Bye.
Thanks again, Tom. Great
Okay.
job.
Again.
Okay.
good night.
Good night.
Bye.